So welcome to the 2022 Fred Cogswell Award Winners Announcement event at the Royal City Literary Arts Society. We live and work on the unceded traditional territories of the Kakite Nation and of the Halko-Melem speaking people of the Coast Salish Nations. Thank you to the Arts Council of New West and to the City of New Westminster for their ongoing support. So I am Janet Kwame. I am the president of the Royal City Literary Arts Society, and I was the coordinator and administrator of this year's contest. This year we are celebrating the 9th year of the Cogswell Award. And I am joined here today by some of our board of directors. I'll wave. Hello. Sarah, Deborah, Angela, and Lisa. And Carol sent her regrets. So I'm so happy to see you all here today, and I'm very excited to get on with the show. This afternoon, our MC is my friend and mentor, Candace James. Let me tell you a little bit about Candace. Candace James was appointed the Poet Laureate Emerita of New Westminster, BC, by order of City Council in November 2016, after serving 2 3-year terms as Poet Laureate. She's founder of the Royal City Literary Arts Society and the Fred Cogswell Award for Excellence in Poetry, and is a past president of the Federation of BC Writers. She's a member of the League of Canadian Poets and the author of 21 books of poetry through 6 publishing houses. Her first book, which I just happen to have here, A Split in the Water, was published in 1979 by Fred Cogswell and his Fiddlehead Poetry Press out of the University of New Brunswick. So this is a great treasure of mine, and I love the picture on the back. Fabulous. So please welcome Candace James. Thank you so much, Candace.
It's a pleasure to be here, as always, sharing this screen with so many wonderful people. And I'll just say a little bit about Fred. I first met Fred in 1978. A friend of mine had sent some poems that I had written while waiting outside school for my daughter at the time, who was just over 1 year old, as she was in toddler care, and they couldn't handle her. So I had to go every day from Crescent Beach up to 108th Avenue and wait in the car while they did their little education thing. So what was I going to do? So I started writing poetry because I could only shop for a week, and this was going to last 3 months. And as I was writing, I had written it before when I was young, but I got a little more serious at this time. And my friend sent away 25 of my poems to 3 different publishing houses. One was Coach House Press, who said, well, we don't really like it too much, so we're going to let it pass. And then the other was Oberon, which said, well, we really like it, but we don't publish anybody unless they've first been published in a periodical. And then I got a phone call from Fred Cogswell at the University of New Brunswick, and he said, I really like what you've sent, and I'd like to do a chapbook of the 25 poems. And I said, oh, that's great. He said, how many poems do you have? And I said, oh, probably a little over 300, which was a lie, but I wanted to make it sound like I've been doing a lot more than I had been doing. And he said, oh, that's wonderful. I'll be in Vancouver in 3 weeks and I'd like to see them. So the next 3 weeks for me was just shaking and shivering and writing, working the day job and working the night and weekend job writing, because I had to have over 300 poems. By the time he got here, I did have 306. So I was happy about that. And he went through the poems, and he said he's going to do he says, now I'm going to do a book. Then he says, you got enough poems. So we went through them, and I had a particular poem I loved. It was called Silver Dreams of the Seventh Dimension. And I said, I'd like that for the title. And he said, no way that's going to be the title. That's just not right. And I said, well, I really like it, you know. He says, trust me on this. He says, I know what I'm doing. He said, so we're going to call it A Split in the Water, name it after that poem. I said, okay. He says, and we'll leave out the Silver Dreams of the Seventh Dimension. I said, I really want it in the book. anyhow, long story short, he put it in the book, and years later, hindsight is 2020. It's really a lousy poem. He was right, but at the time I thought it was so good. He put it in, and it's really stupid poem actually, but it's in there to show my lack of sense at the time. But Fred just really was a terrific person, and wherever he is now, I'm sure he's going to be a terrific person also. So I'm going to read 3 short poems. They're about 8 lines each, because I think they're really good, and they're by Fred. The first one is called "The Water and the Rock." Hard rock was I, and she was water flowing over sharp stones of opposition going, shaping herself to me as to a cup. She filled the valleys of my ego up with a cool, smooth compliance everywhere, as yielding and unhurtable as air. Soft was my love as water, and I forgot, in the calm wash of compliant rhythm caught, how water shapes and softens, sculpts and smooths the channel of the rock through which it moves. That's the first poem. And the second one, I really like this one he wrote. It's called "A Respect for a Poet." When he is dead at last, do not remember what he did and say, "In this he was good or wise. That sin in him was hid." Deeds find a way to sink down time's dissolving sea that drowns both bad and good, all bodies and their memory. So say rather, he carved poems from the liquid hours that ran and froze epiphanies in words that all who read can scan. And the last little poem is called, and I believe he had a book titled this same poem, but it's called "Within My Templed Flesh." Within my templed flesh, a god of pain presides over love's slow murders and hate's long suicides. I curse him as I feel his unrelenting sway, but could a force less cruel wring living out of clay? And Fred leaves us with that thought. And next, now that I've done that, I'm going to introduce the judge, our esteemed judge. Evelyn Lau is a lifelong Vancouverite who has published 14 books, including 9 volumes of poetry. Her memoir, Runaway, Diary of a Street Kid, published when she was 18, was made into a CBC movie starring Sandra Oh in her first major role. Evelyn's prose books have been translated into a dozen languages. Her poetry has received the Milton Acorn Award, the Pat Lowther Award, and a National Magazine Award, as well as nominations for the Governor General's and the BC Book Prize. Evelyn's work has appeared in over 100 magazines and anthologies, including Best American Poetry and Best Canadian Poetry Series. From 2011 to 2014, she served as Vancouver's Poet Laureate. She has also served on numerous national grant and prize juries. Pineapple Express was released in 2020. Her most recent collection of poetry is Cactus Gardens, Anvil Press 2022. So please welcome the 2022 judge of the 9th Annual Fred Cogswell Award for Excellence in Poetry, Evelyn Lau.
Thank you, Candace, for that lovely introduction. And I am so thrilled to be here at this place now after months of reading 126 books of poetry. It was a record number of submissions this year, I'm told. And sometimes I felt like my brain was about to explode. There was so much amazing work from across the country. And it was in some ways, I mean, in many ways, it was a heartbreaking process, because how do you compare, say, for example, one book that is flawed and uneven, but has some poems that you will never forget, versus another book that is, where every poem is beautifully crafted and polished, but maybe it doesn't have quite the energy or the emotional connection that I'm looking for in a book of poems. So there was a great deal of agonizing, and it was an epic amount of work, and narrowing it down to these 10 who are with us today, the 10 long-listed people, was quite the task. But it was actually one of the reasons I agreed to do this. I really did have to think twice about taking it on, because I have sat on, as Candace was saying, many juries before, and at the end of every one I always go, I'm never doing that again, because it eats up your life, right? It takes over your mind, and there's no space for anything else. But one of the reasons I took it on was the fact that I could come up with a long list of 10. It wasn't just coming up with one winner or 3 winners. It was that long list. And I think that having that long list is, the long list itself is in some ways so much more representative of the jury or the judges, what they esteem, than the winners, even, because it is such a cross-section of work. And one of the things that I realized actually only after I finally decided on the short list, was actually 8 of the short list are debut collections, which I thought was amazing. And I know certainly at the beginning of my career, having that acknowledgement from a peer poet was incredibly meaningful to me. And I'm hoping that those of you who are here today feel the same way. I have spent so much time with your books that I can practically recite some of your poems. So we go from the 8 debut collections to, we have George Bowering with us, who is, I think this is his 38th collection of poems, and his voice is as strong and inimitable as ever. And I was so struck by the debut collections, how well crafted the poems are, and how original and strong and unique these voices are. So I was really thrilled to discover you from across the country. So I will read the long list. Yes, will they show up on the screen? The top 10 long list, in alphabetical order, is George Bowering, Could Be, published by New Star; Jenny Boychuk, Antonyms for Daughter, Signal; Andrea Callanan, The Debt, Biblioasis; Molly Cross Blanchard, Exhibitionist, Coach House; Therese Estacion, Phantom Pains, Book Hug; Matsuki Masutani, I Will Be More Myself in the Next World, Mother Tongue; Michael Marr, 7 to 5, Gasparo; Medri Purdom, Little Housewolf, Signal; Bardia Sinai, Intruder, Anansi; and Nicola Volpe, Through the Wasp Mouth I Drew You, Guernica. So congratulations to all of you. And I hope those of you who are here today will read all 10 books, because they truly represent what swept me off my feet when I was reading 126 books. These were the ones that were most meaningful to me, the ones that I will remember, the ones that will stay with me. And yeah, I was blown away by all of you. So thank you for being here today. And now I will announce the top 3, starting with the third prize. Third prize goes to The Debt by Andrea Callanan. And this is my little write-up on The Debt. Place, in all its bounty and limitation, forms the backdrop of Andrea Callanan's collection, The Debt, Biblioasis. Some of these impeccably crafted poems illuminate a Newfoundland childhood and adolescence of both deprivation and abundance. Others paint exquisite miniatures of family life with husband and children. Lit throughout with tenderness and humor, Callanan's precision as a poet is virtually flawless. She renders the ordinary extraordinary in this impressive debut. And I've been invited actually to read a poem from each of the winning collections. And hopefully that's not too strange to hear your work being read in someone else's voice. I've said too much already. I had sworn I wouldn't breathe a word about the stand of golden raspberries behind the school, or mention the apple tree spiraling low with bright fists of fruit. A grandfather's rule: take some, leave some, tell no one. You understand, it's born of fear of empty pantries, born of a hungry history. It makes martyrs of us all come fall, wasp stings and heat stroke, panic picking to fill each cellar shelf. But it feels wrong that I should know an apple tree, keep a berry patch to myself. Come here, I'll draw you a map. If you woke, my grandfather'd have my guts for garters. Andrea, congratulations. I'll turn it over to you. If you would like to say a few words, and you can actually read for up to 10 minutes if you like.
Oh my goodness. I'm absolutely blown away. Thank you so much for your very kind words, Evelyn. And thank you. I wasn't expecting this opportunity to jump in and to read and to hear my poem read. That's so beautiful. Thank you. Well, I'd only picked out one to read, but I can just barrel through if you like. Thank you all so much. Okay, the one I had chosen to read, because we are here in the event to celebrate the bestowing of a prize and of prizes, I thought I'd start with a poem inspired by perhaps this country's most sought after prize, the Tim Hortons Roll Up the Rim to Win annual frenzy of consumer extravaganza. So this is called Single Use. There is purpose in the gently arcing tower of stacked cups, purpose in the way the server spoons heaped measures of white sugar, tips a doubled quantity of cream, slips her thumb around the brittle plastic lid, seals scalding heat inside. There is purpose in the way she fills 1,000 cups, 100,000 cups. She knows just how to stand, knees soft, white runners planted, the slightest shift of her body with each reach, each pour, east to west, along the sun's determined path. There is purpose as customers enter striding, purchase cups, dream of things they'd like for free, a bowl of soup, a sports sedan, a new TV. And when the cups can't make magic happen, there is purpose in the way they're trodden on, discarded along sidewalks, flattened against walls, matted in grasses, banking the fenced rings of schoolyards. There is purpose in the rain that swells the cup's sides, makes loose their glued seams, turns paper to fiber to pulp, that storm drains strain through iron teeth, then gulp. It's my Tim Hortons, but that's as patriotic as you'll ever hear me. So yeah, I'm joining you all from the far point of St. John's, Newfoundland. So I think we really do have the whole country spanned this evening, which is really quite special. I will read. Evelyn, do you have any requests? I don't. I don't know.
Go to town.
Okay. I will read a poem called Golden, which is written for my eldest daughter, who is now in her second year of her undergraduate, and she is in Halifax and will be home for Christmas this time next week. So this is called Golden. My daughter can explain it all, the biggest hits of 1929, each step from vaudeville to soundstage, casting and costuming, choreography for triple threats, the slapdash scaffolds of a quick and dirty golden age. I can explain none of it, how this child has outgrown me, her worn pink shoes now larger than my own, this child who began to dance 3 months before she was born. I have no explanation for the dancing. The screen flashes silver while my daughter corrects the turns of dancers long since turned to dust. She breathes her ambition into the air between us. Under the fractal branches of a metallic tree, unnumbered figures swirl in black and white. They spin into a sequined froth, and their point, I am informed, is terrible. I'm going to quickly read a winter poem because it's that time, and then I will finish with the title poem. And thank you again. I did not expect this to happen. So pleased. So I'm going to read Weatherproof, which is where we're at right now, at least in St. John's. We hang the storm door and caulk the cracks, seal the spaces between the slats to mask the old wood's warp. Double the windows, though the winter panes shudder and bay with each jagged northwesterly. Call for propane and oil. The snow will come by flake, by flurry, by squall and wave and wall. We'll bank and drift in layers against the house. We'll dust, then stick, then bury. We'll be removed and then replaced. It will come soon and it will stay long. We brace and gird, stay in, stay warm, take our vitamins, drink our tea. Stare from the kitchen, past steeple and station, at the hills just beyond, at the white, then gray, then black spruce green, then white, then gray again. And I will finish up with the debt, if I can find it. All right, the debt. I have said no to unlit city streets. I have said no to highways splitting parkland, no to cuts that make one person do the work of 3. I have said no to shutting schools and clinics, no to warplanes tracing ancient paths of caribou, to seabed bombs that box the ears of whales. I have said no to filth in rivers. And 2, I have said yes. I live at this address. Yes, you've spelled my name correctly on the card. That's it. That's me. Yes. Yes, in cabbage-scented parish halls, church basements, yes, in gymnasiums and auditoriums, yes, in libraries, yes, under cold tube lights, over carpeted floors. We are all debtors here, beholden to this jagged place for every lungful of spruce-laced salted air, each slap of ocean blasting rock and boat, dock and ankle. Each berry bucket filled begs something in return. I pay my dues with words, a no to harm, a yes to harder work. I pay my dues in placards, ballots, chants, in reckoning. Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much, Andrea. It's an indescribable pleasure for me to hear your words in your own voice. I've spent so much time with them, so thank you. Our second prize winner is Nicola Volpe, Through the Wasp Mouth I Drew You. And this is my judge's statement for his book. Nicola Volpe's fourth poetry collection, Through the Wasp Mouth I Drew You, Guernica, is in a category of its own. This strange, mesmerizing book will challenge, befuddle, and sweep the reader along on a tide of gorgeous, inventive language and extravagant wordplay. There is something both childlike and sophisticated about Volpe's collection, which wrestles with the very act of the creative process itself. At times, Through the Wasp Mouth I Drew You startled me into laughter. Other times it left me scratching my head, but throughout the journey, I was beguiled. So the section I would like to read, for me, actually really describes my own writing process, and I'm sure some of you can identify as well, too. No word, still no word, not one word, no word. Somewhere in the silt, it's there, I know it, we all do. Beneath the clear, cold river, we drown, searching. Blue crow, pink parrot in your mouth. Note the cereus bloom, celery green white, saffron pistils, honey wink mouth, gape sufficient to snap trap a bat. I have adzy scraped every page, razor squiggled every line. I have unstrung, restrung, unstrung, restrung, unstrung, unstrung, tangled every wriggling syllable heap, iron measured, chrome gauged every fog-grown notion, distilled, ethered, and spindled, pulled from dark, think crag traps, long discontinuity drill holes. Sanskrit seated, Greek grown, Aramaic, Arabesque, the joke's not done. Nicola, I will turn this over to you, and feel free to read for up to 10 minutes. Thank you.
Oh my, I'm astounded. Thank you so much. Thank you for the reading. It's wonderful to hear somebody who knows how to read poetry read back to me.
I hope I didn't butcher it.
I think you did wonderfully. Thank you so much. I don't think I'm going to read for 10 minutes, but if you'll allow me, I'll just read a couple of bits from this. And as usual, I come up unprepared. This is from about the middle of the book. Osip's beast swells above. The ancient bloatworm descends through the torn balloon sky wound with the uptorrent screed, the sibilant light flees. The beast folds its unfeathered wings, squeeze wriggles its newt white belly through. The clouds lie shattered, the sun moans, light wheezes through the widening, air hollow screams, tin howls. Dandelion puff, milkweed, satin rush, lucent winged, thrum-armored clank beetle, chitin tubed leg spurs, spindled, split whirl bits through the flapping gash through the cracking scab leak, the torn boughs, the scattered tree splits, ash bricks, the boulders, the lichen-topped stones, the warm sand dust, coral-footed palms, aching gilled fish, sea slugs, mud wallowers, all withershin swirl through the trembling edge cut. Why did you tear out the clouds? The sky crumbles, the beast flesh settles on our mouths. Osip, why this beast? This Proteus, Grotonome, this writhing pulled blood pink, this lucent skin, cave stream spook, fire passing legworm. Osip, this age, our age. And I'll just read another little bit from further on in the poem. No comet streaks across the indigo. No planet arc, no star curve. Comet. Of course no comet. Silent parrot on her perch. She stretches her wing and shifts, opens her beak. Or so did she once. What use this word I found at last. Thrumming silence, childhood's dust, grimy window, rain, switch flick into night wait, hair sink. This, I suppose, is the end. Though again, under its trowel full of dirt, the worm will be wanting his lunch, and the seed will push pale tendrils to the sun. At day's blind end, I time dredged and tallied the sloop-derived rag tonnage, sans traite, sans cloth. At the zero-sum Darrow stop, the barman's whistle, the demirage paid, subtle weight no. We walked until our feet bled. We walked until the fences tore our rags. We walked until the truncheon men fell on us. We walked until the sun set and the sun rose. We walked until we remembered only how once our feet bled, how once we had rags, how our bones were broken, until we remembered only how once the sun set and the sun rose. Thus we are free, say the saints. Thus the conclusion lizards into us all. Boatman, boatman, here is your coin. Ink will not be affixed to air or wind. Where are we now, so far from our homes? What journey? No compass, no map, alone. And the star we knew like a sister has hidden itself amongst all the others. Thank you. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
I'm honored.
Thank you, Nicola. I know I'll be going back to your book. I'll be dipping into it time and again. There's just so much brilliance there. And it's like many of your collections and all of the shortlisted titles, every time I have read your books, they have revealed something new to me. And there's just layer upon layer of depth in all of your work. So before I announce the first prize winner, I just want to again thank all of you for your amazing books and reiterate how deeply I've kept company with them over the past few months and how much your work has all meant to me. So our first prize winner is Jenny Boychuk, Antonyms for Daughter. And this is my statement. Heart-wrenching, yet hard-eyed, Jenny Boychuk's Antonyms for Daughter, Signal, is a memorable debut collection. Its unflinching style recalls Anne Sexton's poetry or Joan Didion's capacity to contain unbearable emotion under a polished surface, rendering the subject of grief even more devastating through restraint. Boychuk exhumes a fraught mother-daughter relationship, exploring the persistent intrusion of the dead into the damaged world of the living left behind. This elegantly crafted book attempts to say, quote, goodbye to her voice and her fury, and in so doing leaves us with a luminous contribution to the literature on loss. And I will read one of the poems. It's called Elegy for What Does Come. Quick, vacuum up the black spiders before they can mean anything. How could you give birth to a daughter only for the chance to return to your house of nostalgia, your teeth stained with pink sugar. I wish I didn't know. My daydreams are mute, but the nightmares scream underwater. My mouth full of accusations, my sleep state curiosity of forgiveness. Oh, mother, this is getting old. You were dead yesterday, too. If you're not going to leave, why don't you just come inside? Here, I've made a pot of coffee. We're all still alive. Jenny, would you like to say a few words and read for up to 10 minutes?
My goodness, I'm a little bit speechless.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I just have to say this is an honor, but also kind of a full circle moment for me. I remember being a second year student at the University of Victoria in a poetry workshop, kind of having no idea what I was doing there. And we went through a couple of weeks where we were assigned this little project where we all had to memorize a poem to read. Our instructor sort of thought that that was a lost art, the idea of having to memorize something and recite it out loud. And so the poem I chose was one of yours, actually. And of course now, don't ask me which one it was. all I remember is that it was 2 pages long, which felt like, I felt quite impressed with myself. But the reason I remember it so well is that I was quite a shy, quiet child. And of course, when you go through certain things within a family, you have to be quiet. And I just remember that year I was living with 3 other women, 3 other roommates in this house. We were going to school together and no one was in the house that day. And I was trying to memorize your poem for the next day. And so I was just sitting on the couch by myself, reading it out loud over and over again. And I realized in that moment that I had never really heard my own voice before, because of course you speak to other people, but you're never, I won't speak for everyone. Maybe some of us talk to ourselves, but you don't hear your own voice when you're alone. And so I just remember being sort of alarmed and also kind of full of wonder in that moment, hearing my own voice through your words. And so this is just so meaningful.
Wow.
And thank you so much. And thank you to Janet and Candace and everyone else as well. I also had only planned to read one poem, but I'll read that one first and then I'll just I'll see where the pages land after. This poem's called Apeirophobia, and apeirophobia is the fear of infinity. Because what is linear or nonlinear cannot explain why the first arrow Artemis pulled back between 2 fingers punctured no beast's skin, drew no blood, but floated, flickering on and on through a forest of pine and cedar. An eternal miss. Spring disappeared again and again. Foxgloves withdrew into their tombs of root. Did Apollo whisper to his sister in the womb? Are they whispering now in the blue shade of a garden? Blooming and reblooming, bent over, orchid-spined, my brother and I climbed a trail choked with vines, up the last volcano, mud coating our calves. At the top, we swung our legs over the edge, but could not see the end of its hot throat. No longer dormant inside, the beast snapped open its eyes. Not a fear of death, but the fleeting idea of being reborn to a mother who instinctively knows to dress us in black. Antonym for funeral. I search for you in the churchyard, a fistful of baby teeth to sacrifice. Find you in the trees as they dream the last of their sickly yellow leaves. I sharpen my disbelief while everyone prays inside, hands pressed bone to lonely song, You stand between me and the stagnant pond. Fill my ears with summer. Watch passing clouds learn how to disappear. With dull blades, we transcribe hymns on birch bark. Carve white betrayals across birthmarks. Your sharp guilt peels back my skin. Mother, can you bear it? Your husband working so hard to keep the windows dirty, to protect the crows. He wants you to know he doesn't care about the worst lie you ever told. You slipped out of your own funeral. I skipped it too, searched for you in these living woods. In the cemetery, the spirits try on your wedding dress, summon their voices from abandoned snail shells, bottomless lakes, the mouths of their daughters, and sing, imagine spring never comes. Now, imagine it actually doesn't come. Just read one more. New inventory. Neither antonym nor synonym after all. I put my mother away and ask my body to claim its shadow as a part of the whole. Each day I am alive in the oak forest, the evening ocean spray, the mirrors of the city, while she remains ash at the bottom of a frigid river in an evergreen town, secreted away. I have done the chores of remembrance, the filling of boxes, envelopes, and photo frames. I have recorded the milestones of death, month by month, like a mother for her baby. There is the book with a lock of my infant mother's hair pressed inside. There is the book with a lock of my own hair pressed inside, shade for shade, curl for curl. My mother's sweater soaked in her perfume must be left alone, fragrant in its wooden box. And now what? The question is a cliff without a view. I say my goodbyes to the child's chair on the staircase landing, the willow angels with their arms snapped off, the paintings in their glassless frames, blood smeared and darkened on their borders. Goodbye to her voice and her fury. Goodbye to the whispers of an afternoon blizzard. And though I will never forget her hands, goodbye to them too, to the hands that poured cream into coffee and sprinkled sugar over bowls of strawberries. Goodbye to her wedding ring, though it fits perfectly. The note left in her bed was unfinished. I can't find hope, happiness, home. Oh, Mom, I promise. I won't ask again what you meant. Let stem replace bone. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny, and congratulations. So powerful listening to you read. I had the same kind of waves of emotion washing over me as I did, when I was reading your work. So thank you. And thank you again, all of you, for joining us today and for the gift of your words, your wit, just your courage in some of your books, and the discipline. I mean, I think that was what, that's one of the things that will stay with me out of this whole process, was just the craft and the discipline and the care that all of you took with writing your books. I was so hugely impressed. So thank you. And I'm going to turn this over back to, I believe, Candace. Yes.
Yes, I am here. I want to say thank you, Evelyn, for really presenting well, and all the readers so far. At this point, I'm going to read Fred's bio because I think it's very important. He really was a really important person on the Canadian poetry scene. So his bio, as I will read it. Fred Cogswell, born in East Centerville, New Brunswick, was a prolific poet, translator, editor, and scholar, and was dubbed a friend of poets for his lifelong commitment of poetry to those who write it. He was the author of 33 books of his own poetry and 9 books of poetry translation. He also wrote and published many learned articles and reviews. His poetry was published in magazines, journals, anthologies, and textbooks, and has been translated into several languages, including Chinese, Romanian, Spanish, and French. In 1958, he founded Fiddlehead Poetry Books, where he published 307 titles. His publishing house is now one of Canada's more important small press publishers, operating as Goose Lane Editions. In addition, Fred Cogswell was a founding member of the League of Canadian Poets, a life member of both the Association of Canadian Publishers and the Writers' Federation of New Brunswick. Dr. Cogswell was inducted into the Order of Canada in 1981, and he spent his final few years in New Westminster. Now, I think one of the most important things is if it hadn't been for Fred, we wouldn't have this award today. And how the award came about really was, I was looking at all the awards that the League of Canadian Poets had, and I thought, man, there's not an award for Fred. He really should have one. He was so good to all poets, helped so many people. So I approached them and said, I think it would be nice to have an award for excellence in poetry, Fred Cogswell Award. And they said, oh yes, we would like to do that, but we have so many awards already, and it's just going to be too much. We just can't do it. So I got a hold of Fred's daughter, Kathleen, and she's the executor of a state, and told her what I wanted to do, that I wanted to do the Fred Cogswell Award for Excellence in Poetry. And she said, oh, that'd be wonderful. So I was really happy about that, because Fred shouldn't be forgotten. His memory should live on. So then I thought, well, I'm getting older, so I better put this under the umbrella of Royal City Literary Arts Society. So long after I'm gone and pushing up some nice daisies and roses, this award will continue on. And I think it only fair. Fred was he's actually not as well known as he should be, but I think this award is helping him become known for the wonderful things he did for poets and the Canadian literary scene. So that's about all I have to say. Just one other thing. I actually must say, if he hadn't published that first book, I never would have sent anything anywhere. My friend sent it, Fred published it, and it ended up went from a 25-page chapbook to a 100-page poetry book. So that gave me the ambition to continue with it. I thought, oh, somebody likes what I do. I must try and keep doing it. Without Fred, I wouldn't be doing it today. I wouldn't have had the experiences I have had in the poetry world, and they have been wonderful indeed. And it's really thanks to Fred. Anyhow, I do ramble on, which is just part of my persona, and I'll try and correct that now. And we will read we'll get the rest of the long list to read for about, 2 minutes maximum, because we don't have all day and night to be here. But the first, we're going to go in alphabetical order of last name. The first reader on the long list, which is a long list of 7, the first reader will be Molly Cross Blanchard. And her book that was long listed is titled Exhibitionist, put out by Coach House Books. So Molly, please read for a maximum of 2 minutes from your book for us.
Thank you, Candace. Huge congrats to the first, second, and third place winners. I can't wait to read your books. Thank you to Royal City, and thank you, Evelyn, for including me in this group of awesome people. I'll just very quickly read the first poem in my book, which is also the title poem, Exhibitionist. The most orgasms I ever had in one go come over Christmas vacation in my childhood basement bedroom. Door cracked open, sheets peeled back, pussy in plain view of the cat clawing carpet. Is this how flashers feel in their trench coats and chest hair? I'd like to sit in the park with my thumb stuck up my nose and wait for someone to notice. I'd like to be more like the woman in Burger King who eats fries straight off the floor. The woman who cries in Walmart when her preteen son says, "Fuck you, Mom," for the first time in front of the greeter yanking carts. At the strip club, I eat onion rings, watch the dancer watching me from upside down in her halo of light. When will my roommate notice the way I air dry underwear on the corner of the hallway mirror, symbol of sex in his reflection? I want to feel like a display model lipstick, dug at nub smeared across the mouths of strangers, a much handled sample of the real thing. Thank you very much.
George Bowering, reading from Could Be by the press, New Star Books. So please, George, make sure you're unmuted, and I would like to hear what you have to say.
Today is December the 4th, and that means it's the birthday of my boyhead friend, Bill Trump's kid brother, who was born on December the 4th and died quite a few years ago. And so I thought I would just read this poem, which is about my favorite kid brother who died a couple of years ago. It's called Oh, incidentally, my best friend, whose brother's birthday was today, taught French in the high school that Evelyn Lau went to as a student. Mr. Stay. And if I have trouble reading this, it's because I've only got one eye left that's working, and it doesn't work all that well. So if I make a mistake, it'll probably improve the poem. Mr. Stay. Usually, I thought of him as a better version of me, left-handed, like a mirror. He had a singular way of walking, which was just like Uncle Jerry's singular way of walking. When I first knew him, he stood in his crib across my bedroom, plaster of Paris around his head. I showed him and Jim how to play baseball till they were better at it than their teacher. I was hungry to circle the world and could not understand Mr. Stay at Home. But I always felt as if I were home at his place, my ghosts staying at the door. His secret life was lumber. My secret life was tree fruits. We drank beer together after work. Our mother said, I gave you the same 4 letters for your first names. Learn to spell. We stood in the valley where they turned brown and green and complained. Oh, that's a really screwed up line. We stood in the valley where they turned brown to green and neither complained. There is a left-handed soul walking around the South Okanagan, and I think I know who it is. And I want to do this one. It's called Wendy Stevens in 1990. A lot of people don't remember that Wendy Stevens was a woman engaged in a protest in Montreal, and this is what happened to her. 4 Montreal policemen removed their ID badges and clubbed a young woman to her hands and knees on Beaver Hall. They looked virile and handsome, these cops, sort of like posters in 1938 Stuttgart. She nearly stood up again. Her name was Wendy, like my girlfriend. Her face was bleeding. This was Quebec's biggest city. The cops could make you fly, plied their clubs with such skill. Fly or dive onto Canadian pavement. They had perfect haircuts, as only young, handsome men could. And that's why they kept on screaming at Wendy, she who should not have had their haircut, even when it wasn't full of blood. Thank you.
Very, very, very nice. That was wonderful reading. It's always nice to see your face and hear you reading poetry. So now on to the next one in the long list. It is Matsuki Masutani, and he will be reading from his book, I Will Be More Myself in the Next World, published by Mother Tongue Publishing. Go ahead, please, Matsuki. Matsuki, where art thou? Brother, wherefore art thou?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, go ahead.
Okay. Just a foot and a half snow, deep snow on Denman Island, and I was cut off a few times, but fortunately I came back. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay. I read a short poem. Long ago in the classroom, I had about a utopia called the Village of Peach Blossoms. Many of my friends, even the girls, soon dismissed this as fantasy. But I never forgot the image. Now I realize I'm in it. I am inside that image, standing in a garden of apple blossoms. To get here, I left my country, my city life, even my career. I must be nuts.
And is that the end of it, Matsuki?
Yes, yes.
Well, that was a very, very nice. And now I'm going to introduce the next reader, which is Michael Marr, who will be reading from his book 7 to 5, published by Gasborough Press. And I know Gasborough Press published quite a few of Fred Cogswell's books also. So you're in good company, Michael Marr. Take it away.
Thanks. Everyone can hear me? Okay. So I'll read one poem anyways, maybe two short poems. The first one is called, if I can find it, it's called Out of Work. This is what tree felling smells like, but it's been 6 months. No dirty chain oil, no sawdust, no lodgepole pine, black spruce, no more 4 a.m., no sucking back cigarettes over coffee in the yard, clambering up old mountain roads, sneaking one in at 2,000 feet, warming the hands, the throat. The foreman's always said you're too late if you can see where you're driving. No more sunrise, no more broken chains, only some kid in the lineup, a bag of groceries, smears of bicycle chain grease across his pant leg. I think that was a short one, so I think I'll read one more. This is the second last poem of the book, and it's called This Ravage. I could probably be reduced to the 1985-86 set of O-Pee-Chee hockey, the one with Lemieux, McInnes, and Iafrate rookies, or to a chicken scratch of to-do lists and unattainable dreams, much like you could be broken down to a trail of Amazon receipts and fingernail clippings and a solitary mountain of miniatures, of stuffed animals and foam blocks and cracker tins and uncooked macaroni and the haunting cackle, the hyenic howl of a dying battery. You could be broken down to stick people crawling after some breadcrumb of, is it hearts or flowers that are stitched into those pillows, or a scarred knee, or an eyebrow mole of headache and nausea and vomit and chlorine and bleach and meconium and mucus and croup and COVID and fuck, but who's seen your gray eyes close and heard the silence of birth and this ravage of love, this mother and child. So that's it. Thank you very, very much for having me being a part of all this.
Thank you, Michael. Very, very nice. Enjoyed it very much. Now, our next reader is Medri Purdham. She will be reading from her book, Little House Wolf, which was published by Signal Editions / Vehicule Press. So please go ahead, Medri.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Lovely to be among you tonight talking about poetry. I want to say thank you to Evelyn. Evelyn, I've been reading your work since I was a teenage reader and you were a teenage writer, and your good opinion means everything to me. So thank you for including me in this great company. I'm going to pick a poem called Kitchen Vicarious from Little House Wolf. I'll just read it without preamble, that's probably best. Kitchen Vicarious. The summer that dolphins were found to have a self-concept, I house sat. I read about them turning before the glass in a house that remembered the 40s. Cut loose in wide rooms, I swooned over surfaces. Look, I have appliances. I had space and furniture and corridors, a plangent German piano. I folded my hands at a roll-top desk, lost a needle in the upstairs room. The resident cockatiel faked an illness. We made eye contact for an hour. She lapsed first. But the obliging cetaceans slipped and sidled. Then, with a biologist's paint stroke on their backs, they squirmed to scrutinize the mirrored mark. I don't look like that, they were presumed to think. Behind the two-way mirror, exaltation. Time stretched itself between borrowed walls. I put some of the bird's millet on my fingernail, venturing a bite with my gaze averted. I waited for mail. In a classical mood, I spun down hallways, sized up photographs, a child on a gate, a market pig, square as a sideboard, a salvage campaign queen, somebody's relative, colorized after the fact. Crowned in a piece of twizzled scrap, she was roquette cheerful, holding a pyrite scepter ornamented with wingnuts, bolted fast. Her suit, smart gray, made her a satellite to the mountain of virtuous scrap behind her. Its austerity gave my self-sufficiency game its loft. At 6 o'clock, the televised dolphins were stymied again by the glass, by their changed pearlescent bodies. Could I do my hair in victory rolls? Could I learn canning? Slowly they turned, true to themselves once more, soaking up the company of their own reflections. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was lovely indeed. And now we are moving on to our last of the long list readers, last but not the least. And it is Bardia Sinai, and he will be reading from his book, Intruder, published by House of Anansi Press. Please go ahead, Bardia.
Thank you, Candace. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thanks, Candace and Janet, and thank you to Evelyn for all of your reading and for bringing us all together through your reading. I'm happy to be here. I'm just going to read a short poem called Band-Aid. You pulled my hair because you care. Suffering won't make me beautiful like the people buying menthol chest rub at the pharmacy, or the trees that drop used Band-Aids everywhere, then feign death for a season. I grind my teeth, not knowing what to say to you. I go through the bargain bin and eat what's left in there for lunch. Thorn oil for my ruptured cyst and beauty cream for ugliness. Does aspirin make you think of me? I'm standing in the skincare aisle, remembering our trip to Montreal. How, laughing uncontrollably, you opened the bathroom door on your face. The pharmacist was taken with your bruise. She pulled you near to ask if I had hurt you. Thanks.
That was very lovely. Thank you so much, Bardia. That's a very interesting name. What, if you don't mind me asking, what nationality is it?
I'm Iranian. That's where I was born, but now in Ottawa.
Ah, well, a handsome Iranian.
Thanks.
So
All that beauty cream.
yeah, that's a good one. I'm going to just say a couple more words about Fred. how he was just so instrumental in everything. I don't want to ramble here, so I'm going to do what the program says I should do. I wrote a tribute poem to Fred a few years ago. I haven't read it before. And I did it as a glossa, but when I did it wrong. So I didn't do it right. I realized that after I'd done it. So I thought, well, I should make it right. But I thought, even if I make it right, I don't want to kind of lose what I've got. So what I did was, a normal glossa has 4 10-line stanzas with lines 6, 9, and 10 rhyming. So I changed it and I called mine a closa. And I've got lines 5, 6, 9, and 10 rhyming, and all the lines are rhyming couplets because I'd done it that way in a tribute to Fred because he loved rhyming. So anyhow, here is my closa, and it's to his poem, which is the one was Within My Temple Flesh. The last 4 lines are, well, first of all, the title of the closa is To Put Asunder Killing Tides. And the 4 lines from Fred's poem are, within my templed flesh, a god of pain presides over love's slow murders and hate's long suicides. So here comes my tribute poem to Fred. I have seen the sun die many deaths. I have lived through many shallow breaths, but the sun has always risen up again. We clung together closely without shame as the wave we surfed began to climb and crest. We were prisoners in love's tender mesh. Now our sailboat floats with broken mast, and flavored much the same our days gone past. Old scars become new wounds afresh within my templed flesh. There are so many stories left untold, so many hidden deep inside the fold. The days of gold have turned to rust, love letters written turned to dust. Old music whispers on incoming tides. A memory breaks through and then derides all the days I lingered too long there, in sorrow's clutch, traveling to nowhere. A remnant, lonely, broken heart resides. A god of pain presides. And now above the clouds I long to fly, to rise above the highest clouds on high, to nestle in an angel's pristine soul and feel the tender rock of heaven's roll, spending nickels, dimes, and shiny quarters, trying to bring new law to worn-out orders. I want to come in from the driving rain and get back on the good foot once again, reconstructing hope and velvet borders over love's slow murders. The world hangs heavy down with soiled tears, the fallout of imploding nerves and fears. And now, both you and I are left to test the bitter of dreams we laid to rest. Above our heads, a snowy white dove glides as karma's destiny sits and decides if we will be allowed to walk the path of charity's chaste land and aftermath, to put asunder crimes and killing tides and hate's long suicides. So that's a closer closer for the Fred Cogswell Award. I want to turn it back to Janet now, as I'm sure she'll have a few erudite words to say on the award's behalf and everybody that read. Thank you very much for allowing me to be a part of this. It was wonderful.
Wow. Thank you so much, Candice. That was amazing. And what a great way to close with a closer. We'll have to make that a new tradition, I think. Oh my goodness. I feel so wonderful right now. I was a little bit anxious. I always get anxious before these events, but I couldn't have expected it to go any better than it did. Unfortunately, one of our long listers couldn't make it today. That was Therese Estacian, unfortunately, but she is not feeling well today. So that's why we noticed we only had 6 of the 7 reading. I mentioned it at the beginning, but a few of you came in a little bit later. Evelyn, I can't, I want to gush because I think Evelyn is just absolutely amazing. Evelyn, you can unmute yourself.
Okay. Janet, I think you're amazing too. You've been so organized and you've made this
Oh.
process, you've really lubricated this process, you know, with so many books and so much to think about. Yeah, it was a challenge at times.
A record year of books. So you signed on. I thought, oh, well, you know, maybe you would get like 80 or 100, but I
This is
actually
what I was
think
promised.
I actually think
Yes,
it's
under
130.
100.
Yeah, I actually think it's 130 because my
Oh.
Excel was a little off. And I think we're at actually 130 books. So that is an all-time record for us. And the books just kept coming in. And I was like, oh, Evelyn, hi, I have more books for you. So,
I think Janet felt sorry for me. She actually brought me flowers one time with I think, 60 books, right? So
yeah.
and from, I'm taking a little break from poetry after this. I'm just going to read like thrillers, best-selling thrillers for the next few months. Enough deep thinking for a while.
Yeah, it has been quite the year. And our class is celebrating our 10th anniversary on December 20th. So I'm very thrilled about that. 10 years has gone by pretty quick.
10 years.
10 years.
They
yeah.
sure have.
Oh, hi, Deborah. Hi.
Hi. My internet is horrible, so I'll be
Oh.
probably popping in and out.
But lovely. So I'm just so happy that so many of you could be here today. And Candace has graciously offered to edit and put all of this up on YouTube for us. So we'll have it up there for all time, hopefully, and we'll put an archive on our website. We also had regrets from Fred's daughter, Kathleen Forsyth. So unfortunately, she couldn't make it, but we have video from Fred. So we're hoping to get that up as well, and we'll have that on our website. And I encourage all of you to Google Fred Cogswell and the University of New Brunswick. You can find amazing resource of his work and academia and all of that. So please do check it out. We have, a stack of books of Fred. Here I have some. Candace has donated a few to us through our class archive. So please do look up Fred Cogswell. Google him. And thank you all. I can't stop gushing about everyone, but I'm a rambler, as you could tell. So thank you so much. And Evelyn, you're just amazing. Candace, you're amazing. My friend, my mentor.
Thank you, Janet. You know what? I never thought I'd hear the word graciously and my name combined. I thank you for that.
Oh, and before we go, I will just show off these lovely medals that are going to be coming the way of the top.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, so you'll be expecting
Those
those.
are beautiful.
Yeah. So thank you all so much, and have a beautiful, happy holiday, a safe holiday, a healthy holiday. And I wish each of you blessings of the season and a happy new year and all the good stuff. And stay well, and stay safe.
And
Yes.
more poetry books, please.
Yes, and buy all of the top 10, because they would make a fabulous bundle of books for the poetry lover in your life. Imagine getting this near the Christmas tree. Wow.
Yeah.
Write more books. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you all.
And thank
Thanks,
you, Janet.
everybody.
Thank you, Janet,
you
for
all
all
so
your
much.
hard work putting everything together. You
Thank you.
spend so much time doing this. We just are all thankful for you.
Thank you, Candace. Appreciate that. And I think we're heading off now.